Now there ain't nothing to it. Go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you I'm on, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide born. Think that I'm a reconcile born. So ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Keeping it true to form to the L's into a milli though. But they already knew that those farewell to your opinions. Know that he is something. This is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they already knew that though. Here we go.
What's up, North Central Ohio, and welcome to the final edition of the 2020 Playoff Pigskin, where we are already down to the regional championship game, so everybody's got their eye on the prize, and we've got all the eye candy that you can handle for your football peepers. My name is Brian Skowronski. I got a couple of friends joining me as well. Erik Will from WMAN, along with Curt Conrad from the Richland Source, and we've got some football knowledge for you guys on the way. We're going to serve it up hot and fresh. And gentlemen, man, it was a great Halloween weekend. Lots of tricks, few treats out there for some local teams too. What was your big takeaway from the weekend that was, Curt?
I think when it comes right down to it, the teams that we thought would be here are here. I mean, we thought that the Lucas Cubs would be here and the Shelby Whippets would be here. And sure enough, those are the two remaining standing here in Richland County.
And for you, Erik?
Yeah, I was surprised Bellevue kind of had the brakes beaten off them a little bit there. At least, I mean, I think Bellevue at times probably was their own worst enemy. You were actually at that game. How about Ashland losing on basically a walk-off field goal after a questionable call, maybe, I guess you'd say, on that fourth decision to go for it on fourth. How about the Cubbies? I was a little scared. I picked the Cubbies. I thought they'd win, but I thought they controlled that game for more than 3.5 quarters. I mean, they controlled that game. And then I was really impressed with the physicality that Shelby showed, being able to match, what we perceive to be as the SBC Lake Division, that toughness and that grit that they have. I thought Shelby matched it and actually exceeded that.
Well, we've got the moving pictures from all those games on the way. And remember, we are live right now on Facebook and YouTube. So if you've got a question or comment for me, Erik, or Curt, go ahead, weigh in, and let us know. But for right now, let's bring you all the highlights from last weekend in the run back. Let's begin with a playoff rematch at Bob Wine Field, where 6-seeded McDonald ran out to an early 7-0 lead over Lucas. Nathan Gilligan streaking in for a 73 3-yard score, but the Cubs would respond on their ensuing drive with some points. Andrew Vanello gets in for the 2-yard touchdown. And now a huge play here just before the break. It's Andrew Smolin tossing his second touchdown pass, 49 yards on a rope to Connor Harper. This made it 21-7, and Ethan Sauter would eventually put in this one to seal it, 29 yards, 27-14. Lucas advances, Curt.
It's be calm and run power down at Lucas, right?
That's what they do.
Even if McDonald gets out to a lead, they do what they do, and a 2-score lead.
Right.
When you're Lucas, a 2-score lead feels like 3 or 4 scores.
And how about their ability to throw the football in this game? Smolin did a great job.
12-seeded West Holmes looking to continue their somewhat improbable run into the Region 10 championship, but the top-seeded Columbian Tornadoes had sophomore QB Logan beasting under the full mood, but Brady Taylor had a monster night himself to keep his squad in the game. There's a 32-yard TD catch and run. That tied things up, but the Tornadoes answered the bell. Beeson to Keyshawn Jackson made it 21-14 at the half, but Taylor just kept getting loose in the passing game. Here he is again, 57-yard bomb this time from Peyton McKinney. It was 27-24 late in the fourth, but Columbian puts it away. 34-24, the top seed is going to win.
Hey, great run there by the Knights. Tornadoes are tough. Coach Lutz is doing a great job at Tiffin. Great season for West Holmes.
Tornadoes will host the winner of this one between Holy Name and Ashland that came down to the final whistle. Arrows off to a fantastic start, though. Declan Roar to Landon McFrederick on a 42-yard dime, followed up by Ethan Hartley coming up soon. He's going to burst into the zone. It was 14-0 Arrows on top. Just before the half, though, the green wave and Christian Sanchez would get Holy Name within a score. He would taste Pater again later in the third to knot things up, setting up a freshman kicker eventually, gentlemen, in the closing seconds. And Jonathan Santalone would come through for a 25-yard game winner right here. It was good. Ashland loses a tough one.
Yeah, he snuck it over by about a yard to spare, and it was only a 25-yard field goal. I talked to him afterward. He said, I'm confident, but, in that situation, I was shaking a little bit. I had some nerves, and who can blame the guy?
D6 Region 22 semifinals. Colonel Crawford continues their best playoff run in school history with some big-time momentum. It was 14-zip early as Tristan Cross punches this one in from close range. Crawford actually owned a 27-14 halftime cushion with nearly 300 yards on the ground in the first 2 quarters, but the Apaches would come all the way back, flipping the second half script, where they were basically unstoppable on offense, tying the game at 27 apiece as quarterback Doug Rakes got it flowing, piping hot too. How about this, as he takes it all the way in for the long touchdown run. Let's take you to the final minute now, where Rakes finds Caleb Frank in the back of the zone to pull the Apaches within 1, but that wasn't good enough for him. They go for 2 in the win, and they get it, boys. Stunner. 35-34.
Hey, great job by him going for the 2-point, going for the win. No doubt Colonel Crawford probably feels like they had more football left in them.
Another playoff rematch, Shelby and defending state champion Clyde meeting in the semifinals for a second straight year, and no surprise, Owen Fisher was amazing in this game, giving the Whippets a 7-0 lead on the first play from scrimmage. Let's make it 14-zip now. Marshall Shepard to Cody Lance for the score. Flyers would do their best to try to battle back, trimming the deficit to 14-7 with Brady Wilson snag right here, but just too much Fisher and company. He had a $175 and 3 scores. The Whippets moving on.
How good was Owen Fisher? He was fantastic. I said at the beginning of the year, he's the premier offensive player in the area, and he's lived up to that the entire year.
In the other Region 14 semifinal, unbeaten top-seeded Bellevue hosted number 5 Van Wert, and the Cougar senior QB Owen Treese had an unbelievable performance. Here he is muscling his way in to make it 14-0 at this point, and then later in the second, it's Treese. He has Connor Pratt all alone in the end zone. It was 21-zip, Cougars at the break. They extended their lead to 28-0, but the Redmen tried to make things interesting. Here's Keegan Ray getting loose down the far sideline. He's going to race 44 yards on the final play of the third quarter. That trimmed the deficit to 28-14, but this dude, Treese, he was just too good. He accounted for 450 and 6 scores. Big upset.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks around North Central Ohio wanted to see that Bellevue-Shelby game, but Van Wert had something to say about it there. And if you're playing in a regional championship game, you have absolutely deserved to be in the regional championship.
Right, and if you're Shelby, you like that score, well, because of the fact that, Shelby, Bellevue, it's not exactly like they like each other a whole lot. But having said that, Shelby gets to be at home now.
Right.
I mean, so now instead of traveling to Bellevue, they get to stay at the friendly confines of Skiles Field.
Let's talk a little bit more about that matchup then. I think it was a bit of a shock to see Bellevue at least handled in the manner that they did. And I was actually at least a little surprised to see Shelby. I mean, I don't think the score was actually as close as the final would indicate.
Right.
Just what's your thoughts? We'll start with you, Curt, on both teams that are in the final now. I mean, they really controlled their semifinal matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can agree. I mean, Shelby was in control of that game from start to finish. I mean, it was only close because of like one interception late or in the third or fourth quarter. I'm not sure when it was, but I mean, they controlled it, and late in the game they drove the length of the field. They didn't come away with points, and I was standing beside a local coach, and I said that's an absolutely perfect drive, even if you're not coming away with points, because you're knocking seven minutes off the clock, and they look really good. It's going to take a heck of an effort to beat the Shelby Whippets right now.
I agree with everything Curt said. My question coming into that game was the physicality component, because I know Clyde is going to be physical. I don't think you're going to necessarily out-athlete Shelby. Fisher's a stud. They got the 4 horsemen there at the wide receiver spot. Marshall Shepard, I thought he ran the ball well and made good decisions in the zone read situation and those where he was reading the ends, shoulders closed or open. And then Shelby's defense is really good.
Right.
It's their front 4 is as good as you're going to find. And their backers are really, really good. The weak spot, in my opinion, because there were early in the game, there were opportunities for Clyde to have success in the throwing game, and the quarterback, the Cook kid, just overshot his targets. If he doesn't there was at least 2, maybe even 3 passes in the first quarter that I think if he hits those are game changers. Right. Now, come on, we know that every losing team's going to say that. They're going to talk about the opportunities. You've got to take advantage of those opportunities, but depending on how diverse and how well Van Wert can throw the football, that's going to be key, because I don't think you can just line up and just run the ball for 4 quarters and beat Shelby. That's my opinion. I just find it hard to believe you're going to be able to do that. I think their defense is that good. I think if you're a one-trick pony, you're going to struggle against them.
Yeah, and talking to Nathan Zahner after the game, Shelby's standout defensive end, and he said, we have 3 really, really good defensive ends, and there's a rotation there, and I love the linebacking crew, to tell you the truth. I mean, those guys up front, you're not going to be able to run the ball especially well. You got to be really, really balanced, and if they make you play left-handed, you're in some trouble. Right.
Well, and talk about that defensive line, you're talking about, Cam Armstrong, Brennan's younger brother. He's a stud. He's an all-league caliber player. Caleb Baker was supposed to be a kid that was going to play JV and play sparingly. He's ended up being a young man. You can't take this dude off the field.
Right.
And because of that diversity, Xander Wilkins, and because of those guys, it's opened up where in passing situations, you're in trouble, because you've got Merrick Albert and Nathan Zahner sometimes where Zahner's on the outside. Merrick plays that 3 technique. Right. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck blocking that. Both of them have nasty hands and hips, and they're getting around you, and it's a meeting at the quarterback. I mean, you've got to get rid of that ball right away. If it's 3rd and long or 2nd and long, good luck, because even having a developing secondary, you've got about 2 seconds to make a decision before someone in red's going to be getting to you.
And that could be where Van Wert might have some success. They ran many, many bubble screens and took advantage of the short passes against Bellevue. And you saw their quarterback, man. He's a really dynamic player. Right. When he actually dropped back into the pocket, he's got some nice wiggle and shake, man. He was able to evade some of the defensive ends and guys that come breaking in. So I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. And I like kind of the moxie and the swagger of the coaching staff for Van Wert. They had a huge play that kind of flipped it. It was tied 0-0, 3 big plays by the Bellevue defense, and they called a fake punt on a 4th and 13 out of their own end zone. Very next play, they did a trick play to set it up on the 1-yard line. So I think that they, at least the coaching staff, they're creative, man, and they know they got to do some things to make it happen.
And I've got a question for you, Brian, because you were at the game. I mean, what did you think of Van Wert up front on both sides of the ball? Because I just feel like that's a big strength for Shelby. I mean, is that something that you think is going to be something to watch with this game on Saturday night? I mean, do you think Van Wert up front, the physicality, that they're going to be able to match up with a Shelby?
I can definitely tell you this. I was on the Bellevue sideline for the first quarter, and before the opening kickoff, those big 5 dudes for the Redmen, they were all in a huddle, and they were talking to one another, and they were like, no mercy tonight, guys. If it's a running clock, we don't care. I mean, they're big, they were hungry, and they were nasty. And the Cougars, I mean, they shut them out for the first couple of quarters, and it wasn't until late in the third where they finally did get on the board. So, I mean, they're at least good enough to compete with the number 4 team in the state. I think probably Shelby's D-line is a little bit more ferocious and up front, as you're going to see in the top 5 plays, man. They like to, put you on your backside, too, with some of those pancakes. So I think that the Whippets got all the ingredients that they need to get it into the state Final Four, but Van Wert's going to be a fun test, no doubt.
And I tell you what, if last year when Mansfield Senior made their long run, they had a really good running game, and their passing game, a lot of people thought they were going down the field.
Right.
They did a lot of this stuff, and if Van Wert's able to do some stuff, some screen stuff, running it this way instead of necessarily vertically, I think that's a place where you can have some success against Shelby's secondary.
Well, the Tigers were the defending region champions in Division III, Region 10. I incorrectly identified the 2 teams that we thought might move on. Let's first talk about Ashland and the Arrows. I mean, man, that's a tough, heartbreaking loss that they suffered there, playing at home, going down on a tough 4th down play, and then the game-winning field goal. Curt, what's your thoughts on how it all kind of came unraveled for Ashland? They got shut out the last 3 quarters, too.
Yeah, I mean, they jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and there were a couple opportunities to put some points on the board there in the first half. I think they turned it over on downs once inside of Holy Name's 10. They missed a field goal, and I was standing beside Ron Desiker, the Ohio Cardinal Conference commissioner, and I said, and we both looked at each other and said, man, that's a dangerous spot, leaving points on the board. And at the time, they were winning 14-0, and then, Holy Name scores late in the second half, and it's 14-7. And then, after that, the momentum just kind of swung in that game. And that said, I mean, Ashland was right there at the end. I mean, and it's a tough spot. Sean Cedar, he owned it after the game. He said, at the end of the day, it's my call.
Right.
But what happened is they went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 40-yard line with just over a minute to play. They didn't get it. I mean, questionable spot maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that. But the fact was that they didn't get it. And then Holy Name drove 30 yards and kicked a 25-yard field goal with 3 seconds left. But Sean afterwards said, absolutely, we owned it. I looked at my guys, and they said we can get a yard, and it didn't work out.
Right. Yeah, and I've been in those situations. I can appreciate what Coach Cedar was doing. He's trying to get behind his guys, trying to give his guys confidence to go out and get a first down, try to go win the game himself. He's being aggressive. And I give him credit because going into this game, I thought Holy Name was going to be a pretty tough out,
right.
and Ashland being right there and potentially even, I think they're a lot like Colonel Crawford. They're probably sitting at home on a Monday right now feeling like there's more football in the tank, so they're probably frustrated and disappointed and upset and all of those different emotions. But Coach Cedar, great bounce back year, because after the first year, there was probably some people questioning, is this the right guy going forward after, Valentine, who's been just one of the most consistent coaches we've had in this area. And I think he is. He's doing a great job there. He had his team coming back, and great year for them. And I feel like they're getting their identity back. They're throwing the ball. I think the talent's definitely there. They have the players to play football. So I think he's going to do a great job there. And then they get an opportunity to close out the season with what all of us wanted, which is to see that true OCC title game. And we're going to get that. And I'll tell you what, I think Ashland can win that thing.
Yeah, I think the Arrows certainly, they proved that they belonged and
absolutely.
good enough to be in a regional championship.
No,
and same for West Holmes, even though they were the 12th seed, every time Tiffin Columbian scored, they came back and they matched them until about the last 5 minutes of the game. There was a big blocked punt that set up Tiffin's score that put them up by 10 points. So, kudos to both of those teams. They played pretty good, but not as good as those Lucas Cubs, man. They kept calm. They ran power, Curt, and they showed another dynamic, too. Andrew Smolin don't throw it a ton. He only had one game this year where he had multiple touchdown passes. Did it again on Friday night, and it was big for him.
Yeah, it was, and what I love is Lucas's defense. I mean, and I said it last week, I think they've given up about 21 points in 5 games against Division 7 opponents, which is less than a touchdown a game when they're playing schools their own size. I mean, if you're able to do that, you're gonna win a bunch of football games.
Yeah, being there, we were there together, Brian, and I was really impressed. I thought McDonald only graduating 4 seniors off last year's team. That game came right, and that was a first-round game last year, and Lucas got out of there with the skin of their teeth, man. And, Lucas, obviously, we know the story. They go on and get to a state championship game. Well, only graduating 4 seniors for McDonald. I actually was kind of thinking almost, man, maybe this might be it for Lucas. And then shame on me, as I'm driving through town, I'm seeing ground and pound and state bound and all that. And we've got this beautiful sign right here. See if I can hold that up here.
More than one way to run an RPO, baby.
There you go, right there.
Run people over.
So, making reference to people that don't understand that the RPO is generally considered to be a run-pass option. So teams like to use this as far as for the numbers game defensively in the box. If you load up, I'm going to throw the ball to the wide receiver. Lucas says, go ahead and load the box. We're going to run people over. And I'll tell you what, they ran some people over. They were flat dominant in that game. You showed the one highlight of McDonald, that long run that the running back had up the middle there. And after that, it was Katie bar the door, man, because Lucas just straight up owned them. Right. And I'll tell you what, JFK, Friday night, baby. We're packing up. We're going Holiday Road. We're taking, it's like we're going to Wally World, man. We're going to be driving an hour and a half, man. We're going to load up the metallic P station wagon, and we're heading out there. I'm excited, man. I think we can get back to the state Final Four. It is crazy. I knew they were good, but to get back to that, to where they are now with a chance to go back to a state Final Four, man, Coach Spittler and his crew, I mean, it might be one of the more impressive things that we've seen.
And we spoke about it just briefly. I mean, if Lucas has a 2-score lead on you, it's lights out. I mean, there's not enough possessions in a second half to outscore them by 3. To outscore them by 3 touchdowns. It's just over and out. I mean, it's been like that for a couple of years now, and it's impressive to watch. And we also talked about they know what's out there waiting for them, right? I mean, it's on the western side of the state, and it's been to the state championship a bunch of years in a row. We're talking Marion local, but I mean, I think everyone in Richland County would love to see that matchup again.
Yeah, I definitely sign up for that, and I wish we could take the treehouse with us on the road. You know what I mean?
Maybe we can. We'll talk to Taylor Eisman about that. Taylor, get us there.
Yeah, you got to give so much props, I think, to the big uglies, if you will, for Lucas. Right. I mean, those 4 returning starters have been awesome because they have a mix of kids this year. They don't have a bell cow per se. They give a lot of different running threats the ball, and it works out for them because they block so well at the point of attack. So the Cubs, I think this 3rd straight regional championship for them.
It is
crazy. They got that thing rocking and rolling.
And the funny thing is they graduate Jeb Rover, the career rushing leader, 2 years ago, and you think, well,
they're going to be a drop-off.
What are they going to do? Then they have Tommy Zerzow come along, and then they lose Tommy, and all of a sudden they're right back where they were. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, sure. And this year I like it because it's by committee.
Right.
And, which I think at the end of the day might even be to your benefit because they've got 3 or 4 guys that all have over 250 yards rushing. And I love the young sophomore quarterback Smolin. I think he is a rising young star, and I think he gives them the ability to throw the football when needed. I think he can do it. He's just not asked to do it a lot.
And then we got to talk about the Heartbreak Hotel and the Eagles at North Robinson, man. I mean, they had the game, it looked like secured and locked up. They almost built, I think, like a 28-point lead by the half. They got stopped right by the goal line. And then it just goes to show you they had a hot quarterback in the second half to the Apaches, and Fairview comes all the way back. They rode the hot hand. What do you guys make of Crawford's, I don't know if you want to call it a collapse per se, but the fact that they built the big lead and couldn't hold on?
I think, and we've talked about this before, there's a kind of a process that comes to winning games like that. Sherwood Fairview has been there a whole bunch of years in a row, and I think there's something to be said about a team that has been there. They're not going to panic, You go in at halftime, you regroup, you make some adjustments, and sure enough, they came out and did that. Well, Colonel Crawford hasn't played for a regional championship, and as much as you say, we got some guys, who've been in big spots, you haven't been in a spot like that.
Right. I can totally agree with what you're saying. Once again, I know that feeling of knowing you have more football in you. They walked off the field, and they're going to be proud of this. They're N10 champs. They got to a regional semi. They've had a good run. Right. It was nice, but I think that they know they had more football ahead. It's not like, sometimes when you play a team and you just get beat and you walk off the field, you realize, those are some dudes. I think they're walking off with what you said, Brian. I think that they realize, man, this was within our control. It was right there, man. We could almost taste it. And it just got away from them there a little bit in the second half. And Fairview found a little bit of a weakness and was able to exploit that in the second half. But this one hurts but I do think they're all going to be proud of this run in the very near future.
And what's going to really stick in their craw too is the fact that the number 1 seed on the other side got upset.
Yeah.
So they would have got to play at home for a regional championship, and they were shutting down 1 2-point conversion away from actually stamping their way into that game. But life goes on, and a great season for the Eagles, man. The best one in history. So congratulations to them. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump in the time machine and go all the way back to last week, where we had 5 nominees for the top 5 play of the week. We let you guys vote out there on all the different social medias, and this is who you decided had the best play. Let's take a look. And it is Andrew Finello, the sophomore, spinning his way in for the pick 6. Huge play right there for the Cubs last week against Independence. Lucas still playing in the postseason, and they got a lot of young kids out there making waves, including this sophomore right here. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to our other 5 nominees for this week. Those are on the way right after this. Our first nominee features a whole lot of would-be tacklers, and Lucas senior back Ethan Sauter putting the would-be in that phrase as he jukes out 5 McDonald's players who were not loving it. On his way in for a 29-yard score, and it looks even nastier as we slow it down to half speed. A lot of shake, rattle, and roll in this kid's game, and he may find himself back on the list again here shortly. Good stuff here, Curt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, when you're playing the Lucas Cubs, there comes a time when you just want to tap out because they just run at you, and until you've had enough, and you kind of raise the white flag.
They pound you till you quit. That is their motto. Our second play is a game winner. Fairview's Doug Rakes raking up a dime piece to a wide open Caleb Frank. Successful 2-point conversion gives the Apaches the lead in the final minute. Sick play design here too as they roll you out to the right, but that's all just a diversion. Frank link it out to the left, leaving a whole lot of achy breaky hearts at Colonel Crawford. They still a win.
Yeah, that's a tough one to lose on right there, but great play design, like you said, roll out to the right, throw back to the left. Tough loss.
Nominee 3, first offensive play of the night for Shelby, and that's a limo-size hole for Whippet's rushing king Owen Fisher to chariot through, instinctively flocking to the end zone like the salmon of Capistrano. And this Whippet's O-line must like to dine at IHOP. I mean, are you kidding me, boys? Look at all those pancakes as we go in with the CSI enhancement. It's going to open up a syrup floodgate, and Fisher takes it in. Our fourth nominee features some tricky Cougars going deep down the family tree, and it's a Pratt party. Aiden sending the invite via SkyMail to Connor, who grabs the package. He zags his way down to the Bellevue goal line. Let's watch it one more time at half speed. Great toss and block by Drew Johnson. Gives Pratt time to find his same name, getting behind the coverage. This set up a big score, too, for the upset.
Seems like that's probably something you draw up in the backyard, right? If you're both, if you're at home for the, for Thanksgiving dinner or something, you're throwing the ball deep to your brother or cousin or whoever it is.
Those are fun, man. Like, those plays are fun. When you're a player, you love those plays.
Well, the play so nice that we're showing it twice. Ethan Sauter actually should have another play on this nominee. He had a 20-yard touchdown catch, but this was great. Should we just watch this one more time? And just
it's funny. It's funny that we go back because when we were there live, this on film, this looks cool. It was even smoother and sweeter in person. I'm telling you, He had 2 cutbacks that completely left him grasping for air. That was one heck of a run.
That's one of those I put my hands on my head.
Yes.
Like, what
Yeah,
did
it
I
was
just
awesome.
watch? So those are your top 5 play nominees of the week. We'll repost this and allow you, the folks at home, to decide. This is our last one of the year, too. So make sure that you make your vote count. All right, let's again go back to last week, and we had 5 nominees for our Friday Night Phenom presented by Spherion Mid-Ohio. After you guys voted, here's our winner from Week 9. How about the performance by one Tristan Cross of Colonel Crawford? This is how they got into the semifinal contest. 46% of the vote this week, too, went to Tristan, who you saw the numbers there. 200 yards and a few touchdowns. Big time stuff.
Yeah, it would have been a pleasure to watch him play at least one more week here. I think we all would have enjoyed that.
No question about it. Well, here are this week's Phenoms for Week 10 coming at you right now. The Friday Night Phenoms presented by Spherion Mid-Ohio. Got to start with the kid from outside of our area, but man, how about the comeback that this Doug Rakes orchestrated? And look at those numbers, too. 4 total touchdowns, 29 pass completions, too. A lot of those coming in the second half. He was great in the last 2 quarters.
Go get some ice on the elbow. 45 pass attempts.
Right?
That doesn't happen very often in high school football.
Yeah, it's very to say, like when I see stats like that, it just makes me think about 25 years ago when you're talking about 45 rushes in a game.
Right.
Now we're seeing guys throw, 30, 40, 45 times a game. I mean, when you were growing up, you wanted to be a running back. Now you want to be a quarterback. Everybody now wants to be the quarterback because you get to run like this dude right
he
here.
can move it a little bit.
And you get the ball in your hand every snap with an opportunity to run or pass. So this dude obviously balled out in the second half and was probably the most instrumental reason on why they're advancing.
You can't overlook the night that Owen Fisher had. It just seems like every single weekend this kid is making it back into our lineup. 3 more scores for him. I think the kid's approaching 1,700 yards for the season.
9 games, man.
In just 9 games. I mean, he's stupid good.
Well, I'm sorry, Curt, that touchdown run right there was unbelievable. Here's 2 things that he has. His vision's good, but his body posture and his ability to feel and run behind his pads is second to none. He literally encourages contact and just leverages against it. It's incredible.
Yeah, last week against Ireland, I think he scored on an 81-yard run on the second play from scrimmage. This week, he goes 60-some yards on the first play. I mean, talking about setting a tone for the rest of the night.
Yeah, people don't realize he's 5'8" and probably close to 180, 185 pounds. He's got tree trunks for legs. He's a lot of dude.
He likes the gym, and so does this kid, Brady Taylor. He's got a lot of speed, too, and we normally don't put players that do not end up in the winning column on our list. But when you have double-digit receptions out of the backfield and then go for over 230 through the air, I thought that he was worthy.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. There was a time not so long ago when West Holmes that many pass attempts or receptions in a game. That's like a season for some of those guys, and not so long ago. But they are out there throwing it around, and man, what a night!
Tell you what, those unis, they look like the Buffalo Bills out there,
A little bit
running around. I'll tell you what, but like you said, Brian, when you have the night that he had, there has to be the ability to recognize it. I mean, those are career stats for some people. If you're a Lucas wide receiver, that's your entire career. He did it in a game.
You want to talk about a career night? How about 6 total touchdowns for this dude? 4 of them on the ground, a couple through the air, 25 completions too. This kid, Owen Treese for Van Wert, he was the reason why the Cougars pulled off the upset against number 1 Bellevue.
Hey, once, twice, Treese times the lady, baby.
Ooh-wee.
I'll tell you what, that was impressive numbers right there. I'm looking forward to seeing him this week. I'm excited because now we get outside of our footprint now getting in the regional final, and I love seeing primetime players. And for this dude to be able to do what he did against that Bellevue defense, can't wait.
6 touchdowns, Coach. That's shades of Brennan Armstrong against Columbian a few years ago, right?
Right. And like you said here, it looks like he's playing defense, so he's ball hawking out there as well. So great matchup, man. It's going to be fun.
And our final nominee this week, coming from the Lucas Cubs, Ethan Sauter, all over our airwaves right now, and rightfully so. He didn't touch the ball as much as he usually does, but when he did, he was super efficient. found the end zone 2 times for Lucas as they were able to knock off McDonald, a team that, like you were saying, Eric, I think that we thought that they were pretty loaded. Returned a lot of starters, and the Cubs took them down thanks in part to this kid.
Yeah, Ethan Sauter's a heck of a player. Like I said, right here, watch this. Right there, I'm telling you, that's not, and then right there, that one.
Come on.
I'm telling you, they're both stupid cuts. That's a great job. That's running with feeling. He's picked up a lot of that workload from out of the backfield with the running game and his ability to catch the ball. Right here, this play right here is unbelievable. That was a great pitch and catch right there. I don't care where you're at in the world of football. Ethan Sauter very deserving to be on this list.
So those are your Friday Night Phenoms nominees. We pick them, you vote, and you decide. All right, gentlemen, we are down to the final championship week for the regions all around the state, and we've been following 4 of them pretty closely here on the OH Report and certainly on the Pigskin. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's take a look at the updated brackets now. And we'll begin with the big picture here. See, this is what we've been looking at.
No floating footballs, man. No floating footballs this week.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric.
Sorry, I like those floating footballs.
We'll get it back for you next
Takes me to
week.
a happy place.
All right, let's go ahead and let's zoom in on D3 Region 10 now, where the final 2 teams standing. Columbian, the top seed, and then Holy Name, the 6th seed, knocking off Ashland. Just your thoughts as you see all the different teams out there of how it's all shaken out up to this point.
I think everyone in Richland County and North Central Ohio wanted to see that 12 versus 2 matchup, the West Holmes and Ashland. But Holy Name, I saw him for the first time this year. Last week, I saw him against Senior High last year. They do a lot of things well. I mean, they play. They gave up 2 first quarter touchdowns. They pitched a shutout the rest of the night. Offensively, they got some things going. They had a big tight end who I thought he was a game changer last week. I mean, he made some huge plays. They have a 6'2", 220-pound sophomore running back who is just a hammer. And if you're able to mix it up, you're able to run the ball, you're able to throw the ball, and then you got a kicker who's proved to be a pretty reliable guy last week too. And these games come down to that, right? I mean, it can come down to a 3-point game, and you got a guy out there that you can throw out there who can kick it consistently from 30 to 35 yards. You're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I agree. So he likes Holy Name. I like Columbian. in this game. I think that they're going to be, they're the 1 seed. They should be a tough out. But I think Coach Lutz finally gets his team to a Final Four. I think that he went with a complete rebuild. I remember Tiffin. Tiffin was the cream of the crop and the staple in the entire 2000s in the NOL and even the early SBC. And then they had that dry spout there when Coach Lutz first took over. I think they even went 0-10.
They did.
And so he's built them up to this. I think they get over the hump. I actually think they get to a state Final Four this year. I like Holy Name, but I'll tell you what, I think Tiffin's deep. They got a lot of talent. They got a lot of dudes that can play. They got a young quarterback that's still developing. So I'm going to pick them to win. And I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be one of the teams in the area, in the extended area, that's definitely going to be a preseason pick to get back there next year.
And what I like a lot about Columbian is that at the beginning of the year, when I seen them in their game at Bellevue, they were doing a 2-quarterback system where they had the freshman getting the start, and then they were bringing in Logan Beeston, who I think, in my opinion, was the better of the 2 players. Now I think that they've went ahead and they're just like, you know what, sophomore, go ahead, get in there, do your thing. He's a big, strong kid. He made a bunch of great plays in the win last week over West Holmes. So I think that they found their quarterback, and that's got to help. Sometimes a 2-quarterback system works, but we've also heard coaches say if you got 2 quarterbacks, that means you don't really have one. So right now it's working out for Columbian, and I kind of like them too, to knock off Holy Name. Let's check out Division 4, Region 14 now, where the Shelby Whippets still hanging around as the number 2 seed, and they get to play Van Wert. We've already talked a lot about this matchup. How do you see it shaking down, boys?
I've seen Shelby the last couple of weeks. I saw them a few times during the regular season. They do so many things well. I absolutely love their defense. That defensive line is as good as I shouldn't say it's as good as any, because Mansfield Senior's defensive line last year was really good. But this is as good as I've seen a Shelby defensive line in all the years I've been in the area. Man, if you're going to score on them, you're going to have to earn it.
Yeah. I'm not just saying this because I work there. I can be. I really can. You can pick the better team when you see it. I haven't seen enough of Van Wert, so there's a little bit of just an educated guess as well. I just like the dimensions that Shelby can play with. I think they can hurt you so many different ways offensively. Marshall Shepard's leadership is something that people don't talk about. Though his teammates love this guy. I mean, they will go to battle for him. Owen Fisher is an absolute man-child, and then you put Blaine Bowman, Cody Lance, Andre Hill, Connor Hinkle, even Carson Ingram playing the H-back. It's just, there's so many weapons on that offense. And then you flip over and you talk about that defensive line and then those linebackers. And then sometimes there's mental lapses or issues in the secondary, but it's not a lack of athleticism. It just might be an attention to detail issue. If they're dialed in, I like them in this game. I do think it's going to be close. If you're asking me to pick a score, I'm thinking something. I think it's going to be within a score. I think it's going to be 34-28. I think it's going to be 27-24. I'm thinking something in that realm. I think the idea of a running clock is probably out. I do like how it's been a progression to this because Clyde was probably just from top to bottom, physical and athlete, probably one of the best teams, if not the best team they played this year. I think Van Wert's going to be a step up from that, which Bellevue would have been as well. So I do like Shelby in this game.
Yeah, I like Van Wert. I like the weapons that I saw this past week. I like the moxie of the quarterback, certainly. And he's one of those kids, too, that you were talking about. Hey, everyone loves Marshall Shepard. When I'd seen him go over to the sideline, man, did the coaching staff and everybody just love this quarterback. So he's a senior. They got something going for him. But all the reasons that you talked about, like the Whippets, man, they're like when you go to the Waffle House. You get, smothered, covered. You get it all on top of there. They got everything at every level. So I think this might be Shelby Whippet's year to get back to the Final Four and maybe even get a step further than you did.
Right, it was interesting because I had a conversation with a couple of the players, and we were, one of them brought up the 7-team team, and I just said, listen, don't let old people talk about that stuff. You're in the process. Have the best season in the history of Shelby football. Right. Make it where nobody can argue that you've gone the furthest, that you've done the best. The only way you can get there is by, what do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. That's what they're doing. Just eat the elephant this week, eat that piece of it, and then move on to the next one. They're fun to watch. They're exciting to watch. And I agree with you. I like, when you're Lucas, and I'm sure we'll get to this, they're staring down the gun barrel of eventually getting to a team that gets to the state playoffs like people try to win league titles. I mean, just every year they get there. I think Division IV is wide open. Yeah. There's not a monster parochial school. There's no traditional Steubenville team like that. I mean, like I said, this might be out of ignorance or just don't know any better, but I find it hard to believe there's anybody in the state that's that much better or would present more of an issue than Shelby could potentially, bring to somebody else as far as trouble. So I like Shelby. It would not surprise me at all if they're playing down at this weird stadium down at Obet's or whatever that place is.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little bit about it earlier. A lot of those traditional powers kind of got competitive balanced up a division, so that kind of leaves Division IV wide open as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, Shelby is as good as anyone still left playing football.
All right, let's jump now over to Division 6, Region 22. We're the last team that was remaining in our little bubble right here. Colonel Crawford suffered a really tough loss, of course, at home. They went down to Fairview, who is now taking on Columbus Grove. So we look back over the last several weeks, and you see, Crawford, what they've done to get to this point, and it's hard not to think about the way that they lost and still not wish that number 2 seed was available. Them playing at home this next week, it's a shame, but it is what it is. And in this championship game, I mean, you gotta probably like Fairview. They get to play at home now too.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of Archibald going through this because I don't think that league's that great. Wasion's always up towards the top there, but they're always an early exit here as the last 5 years. Bryan's kind of in the same category. Archibald getting the 1, and then Columbia. Cary could have very easily won that game. Cary could have knocked them out there with that 8-1. So I'm definitely going Fairview. I like them. I like what they present. I like the quarterback. They're just a solid team, and what Curt brought up about learning how to get through each phase, they've been there.
Yeah, absolutely. I covered Hillsdale a few years ago in the playoffs, and they got beat by a Fairview team in the second round. Fairview's always there. They're used to this stage. They're not, the bright lights don't seem to bother them. So yeah, if I'm picking somebody, I like Fairview.
All right, finally, let's check out Division 7, Region 25, where the reigning, defending regional champions are still alive, and they reside at Bob Wine Field. Though they got to go on the road this week, all the way over to Warren. JFK Catholic is awaiting the Cubs, but I think we're all pretty much in agreement that this Lucas team, like you said, you don't want to compare them to teams, but the way that they operate this year is just different than a season ago. They got 4 senior linemen that are all hosses. They're huge, big, tough, physical kids. And then this whole complement of these new athletes, a lot of younger players too. This is such a dangerous out. The Lucas Cubs, I think they're going to be a lot of trouble for JFK Catholic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't get here year after year after year without having a system in place. And those guys, they run it so well. I mean, and you know, it's fascinating to me that they can still, at a school that size, that they can find kids to just plug the holes. But they've done it year after year after year. Yeah,
I love it. Aaron always does interviews with the coaches, and it is literally like a broken record. Every week, man, they run that funky offense. Every coach that plays Lucas, it's like they don't even really know what to call it, because yeah, there's wing T in there, but it's foot-to-foot splits, and then they do some other things. We didn't even see the double handoff last week. You know what I mean? They've still got that thing sitting in the holster ready to go, but. You know, I know Coach Back really well from JFK. I coached in an all-star game with him. He's really good at JFK. JFK won the state championship, I believe, in 2016. You know, so they've been there. They've done that. These are 2 sledgehammers going at it. We're going to be playing at Warren Harding High School because that's where their home games are. It's going to be a beautiful facility on turf, beautiful. It's supposed to be in the 60s. I love Lucas. I'm taking Lucas. They're getting back to a state Final Four. As a matter of fact, as long as they don't play Marion local, I'm picking them the whole way. And I would love to be able to. And who knows? Maybe this year's the year that it would just be crazy enough, like you said, Glover, and then you go back and you're thinking, oh, they're going to take a step back. Then they get to the state finals. Maybe this is the team that does it. You know, there's a point in time where, and I would say this to any of our local teams that are left, somebody's got to eventually win one. Mm-hmm. Might as well be you. You're still playing, you know. So let's roll. Go ahead. Let's have. You know, any of these local teams that are left, let's go win a state championship.
Yeah, and, you know, there's something to be said about big game experience that we were talking about. And Lucas has been there. You know, these kids, it's not going to bother them one bit what the stage is. They're going to go out there and line up. And I tell you what, Dalton gave JFK a pretty good game last week. And, you know, I saw Plymouth run a version of Lucas's offense earlier in the postseason. And I turned to one of the guys that was covering the game with me, and I said, you know, and Plymouth had a great year, and they're doing it well, but they just haven't run it as long. And I said, they kind of run it, but they run it like they're in quicksand compared to Lucas. Lucas runs it, and they run it so fast. I don't know how you defend it.
Right.
I think the answer is you just don't, Curt. We're all on Lucas's bandwagon, and we think that they're going to get back to the state Final Four once again this year. And you know that we're going to have that live coverage for you Friday night. We're going to be teaming up with Erik Will and Aaron Hines once again. So we'll have the OH Report and WMAN back together looking for the Cubs to advance once again. Well, boys, that's going to bring us to the end of what's been a really awesome season here on the Pigskin and now into the playoff Pigskin. I've really enjoyed the time that we get to spend with each other. Used to be on Saturdays, now on Monday nights. And we will get together again next week. I'm going to give out a list, and we're going to get together the all OH Report team, the first ever one. And then we're going to have an offensive, defensive player of the year. And then we're going to hand out the OH Report Heisman. So this is the first time we ever done any of this. I can't wait. We got trophies lined up for the winners out there. And, yeah, Erik, you want to model that off?
Absolutely.
Show them what they're in line for, baby.
Right here. Hey, this is it right here. If you're fortunate to get one of these, man, this is better than the Heisman Trophy.
Agreed.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, look at that guy. He's in a great defensive position. Hips are down, knees are bent. That's so much better. Yes, and I've got my footballs in the back. This is fantastic. I'll tell you what, first class all the way here at the OH, baby.
Hey, we try. We try to bring the people what they want. So for Curt and Erik, my name is Brian. We appreciate you guys watching with us all season long. And make sure that you tune in. Tons of live streams on the way all week, including tomorrow. We're going to be up in Toledo with those Madison Lady Rams. So check us out then. But for now, we out.